Ladies and gentlemen, please rise to receive your Chairman, Vice Chairman and Chief Executive.
Thank you all for joining us. Before we take a seat, the Reverend Laura Handy will lead us in prayer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As ever, I'm asked to help us take a moment of reflection, a moment to pause, to take a breath, and I will offer some prayers which you may want to take hold of if that helps you as we begin this journey. Let us pray. In this moment and this place, we call to mind the communities that we seek to serve. The faces, the people, the projects, the decisions, the challenges, the joys. Almighty God, we thank you for the good that's been done, for the moments of love and joy and comfort and justice, moments when hope and confidence have returned. Lord, we also offer to you those moments that are yet to be resolved, the things we still seek to do, and the things that have drawn us to step forward and serve our community in this way. Tonight, we thank you for those who have come before us, all those who contributed to shaping our communities. We think of colleagues past and present, and those who will come after us. As will be mentioned shortly, we particularly remember tonight Graham Beale, and think of his family and those who mourn as they prepare for his funeral at the start of next week. As we hold a moment of silence together, we may want to remember Graham and all those that we want to remember with fondness on this night. Almighty God, help each of us to play our part. Whatever roles we find ourselves in over the coming months and years, help us to use our skills and gifts for the good of others. And Lord, I ask you to bless the members of the council this night. May this meeting be one that leads us in the path of life and truth. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. And as the meeting goes on, feel free to remove jackets, as it is a little warm. So, welcome to this meeting of the full council on Wednesday, the 14th of May. Could we start with any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Chair. Item 11, the vendor is known to me.
Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chair. Item 9, I'm a trustee of Wychavon Leisure.
And seeing no other hands, we go on to apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Hartley, Kearsey, Robinson, Sims and Tasker.
Thank you. And seeing no other hands raised around the room, we go next on to minutes of the previous meeting. Unless there are any corrections from the floor, I'm happy to propose these as correct. Could I have a seconder?
Happy to second that, Chairman.
Thank you. Could we have all those in favour?
That's clearly carried, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we go on to Chairman's announcements. So, spring brings new life and much positivity, but we must start by remembering those our Wychavon community has lost. Sadly, we have lost former councillor Graham Beale. Graham was a district councillor between 2011 and 2019 for the Droitwich South Ward, for the Droitwich South West Ward, and served on licensing, planning and overview, and the scrutiny committee. His dedication to our residents was felt throughout his work on Droitwich Spa Town Council as well. His funeral will take place at Worcester Crematorium at 10:45 on Monday the 19th. Please let Faith know if you plan to attend. I hope you'll join us. In further memoriam, I had the honour of representing Wychavon at the funeral of former Wychavon Chair David Noyes, and later at the cathedral service for the late Lord Lieutenant of Herefordshire, Thomas Dunn. On the theme of commemoration, I raised the flag for the Commonwealth and more recently for the 80th anniversary of VE Day. The changing of the seasons has seen celebration with the civic services of Evesham, Pershore, and my own slightly strange one held at a charity close to myself. As well as this, I visited our neighbours for various events, but a special mention is very much deserved of Malvern's tourism launch event at the Elgar's birthplace, showing great plans ahead for Malvern. I will say, though, the most impactful of my visits has been my visit to Murstow Place in Evesham. I've been told several times to make sure I get the name right there. Ran by St Basil's Charity, Murstow Place is a home for people becoming homeless to save them before they hit the streets. But not just to house, the service provides them skills to succeed. One of the most common reasons for a person to lose their home is a breakdown in relations of the family. These were the young people of Evesham I met on my visit, who were building their lives as residents of the town. The building was staffed by passionate people who made great role models to the young people, which really created a homely unit for them to learn and grow a stability that was shown in how well they recognised their neighbours and how lovingly they had decorated the shared spaces in the building. Truly something worth replicating. So with my announcements done, we go next on to item 6, public participation. And we have 8 members of the public wanting to ask questions in relation to 17 Ombersley Road. These being all on the same topic, I've asked that these be asked one after the other so that we can give a more holistic answer, but an individual response will be sent to each member of the public asking a question. So I'll ask in the order that we have listed to come to the table just at the back of our councillors, where you'll see some empty seats and a microphone. So if we could start with Sylvia Wilkinson.
First question, what insurance is there in place if there is any damage to our properties? Second question, parking. There is only parking for 2 cars at the back of the house. There are neighbours with disabilities living in the road at the back. If cars are parked on the roadside, if they need an emergency vehicle to come and see to them, the road is so narrow it will be difficult for them to get down there. Also, if there's any change in the use of the property, you might be needing cars, like several cars, to be parked there, and there's just no room for car parking.
Thank you. And next we will invite Alex Pawley to speak. Just as a note, thank you for attending, and ensure that everyone gets a time to speak. We will be trying to keep everyone to a maximum of about 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
So I'll give you a little knock if you get close. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At the March Droitwich Central Residents Association meeting, I asked the council representatives who attended if they'd considered new build gap homes that Bernardo's use. I was told they hadn't been considered because they were too expensive, but on the contrary, the gap home would only cost £700,000 and would house 7 residents. The same number I understand is proposed for 17 Ombersley Road. That doesn't include the cost of land, but would still be considerably less than the cost of acquiring and refitting 17 Ombersley Road. So my question to the council is, why has no serious consideration of this option taken place? This would remove wasteland around Droitwich, it would appease the local residents' concerns, and it's cheaper for the council, so win, win, win. Also at the March Droitwich Central Residents Association meeting, in front of council representatives, over 60 local residents voted against the scheme, with none in favour. The main reason being for the concerns of existing properties in the region, on the road, with a similar use. We understand that in the face of this opposition, St Basil's, who also attended the meeting, is no longer interested in running the site. How have the local views, so my question is, how have the local views of residents been taken into account in the decision to proceed, or have they simply been ignored?
Thank you. Next, if I could invite Samantha Pegg.
We note tonight that a sum of £537,000 is being recommended to Council. The detail behind this sum was not shared in either the meeting pack or the minutes of the previous meeting as deemed confidential. Please can you indicate what items, obviously excluding values if it's still confidential, are included in the sum, who calculated the sum, whether the quotations for works have been sought and whether the sum has been subject to third-party assurance. Secondly, we understand there's an intention to replicate Merstow Place. Please can you advise which budget this will be funded from and indicate the monthly cost of running that facility? Thank you.
Thank you. If I could call Victoria Hulbert.
Thank you. How will the council and those responsible for the running of the hostel ensure that the residents of both these places and local area are protected from the antisocial behaviour of local drug dealers? There is already a B&B on Ombersley Road with recurring problems and drug dealers seen in underpasses and the churchyard at St Nicholas Church, which the police have still not dealt with. Number 2, what are the plans for the house if, as rumour has it, St Basil's is no longer interested in running it?
Thank you. Jeremy Hulbert.
Hi, good evening. The question is this appropriate place to house homeless young people on a road which is a main thoroughfare to school for 3 schools to young children in the area, and who is safeguarding the children and the residents? And secondly, what protection do the residents of Ombersley Road have from the antisocial behaviour that may arise from the conversion of number 17? And who is ultimately responsible and accountable? There are many young families and elderly residents in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Elizabeth Zedig.
Thank you. My first question is, where is the funding coming from for the supervision of the young folk who could be living at number 17 Ombersley Road? I understand that money totalling over £1 million has already been allocated for the purchase and refurbishment of the property. Secondly, Ombersley Road is used daily by pupils from 3 local schools. There are council flats immediately adjacent to the property in question, and there are continuing problems with a number of occupants of those flats, not all, namely antisocial behaviour, noise and drugs, both using and trading. have these issues been considered in relation to number 17 Umbersley Road? Thank you.
Thank you. And now I believe we have from Dominic Furby.
Hi there. First question is issue on the parking of the property. It's going to be into a 7-bedroom. I'd just like to know where the parking spaces for minimum of 6 car parking spaces are going to go. And the other question is, has Highway Agency been involved to have a look at the access going into Albert Street and then into West Street? That's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Wendy Taylor.
Right. Are the people who are in Wychavon getting value for money from this purchase of 17 Umbersley Road, Droitwich, along with the cost of refurbishing? My second question. What around-the-clock plans will be put in place to rehabilitate the proposed residents of the property scheme to prevent them falling into the drug and alcohol scene that is already a big problem in this area? And please may I request a personal meeting with the chair so that we can have a walk around the area so we can actually share our concerns with what we are coming to you tonight with the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe we have a response from Councillor Rick Deller.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Before I start, I'm happy to meet with you, as I've said on multiple times. Firstly, thank you for all the questions and your interest in this very important topic. I will deal with each of the points raised in those questions within the statement, and I also will commit to providing a written answer to each of you. Firstly, I would like to stress again that this isn't a hostel. It's not a halfway house or any other such scheme. This is something totally different to anything you have experienced before. It's also important we do not demonise young people just because of their circumstances in life that has led them to being at the risk of homelessness. This doesn't mean they pose a danger to public, and such language is concerning and unhelpful. The truth is, many of these young people are vulnerable themselves. And society, with all its challenges and failings, poses a greater risk to their well-being than they do to others. Now, I have had the pleasure of meeting some of these young people being supported in our scheme in Evesham. Some of them were parents themselves, and like any parent, wish to do all they can to protect their children. All they really want is the same opportunities those of us fortunate to come from more stable backgrounds enjoy. And I strongly reject the inference in some of the questions that these young people pose a risk to children, the property or residents in Umbersley Road. So coming to various concerns raised around antisocial behaviour. What we are developing is a supported accommodation scheme for young people who are homeless or threatened with homelessness. Young people in this scheme will benefit from tailored and focused support with the aim at supporting them to move on to their own accommodation as quickly as possible. This sort of support is not provided in any other types of emergency accommodation residents often refer to, and it's important that this is recognised. Part of the support the provider will offer will include educating them about the dangers of substance misuse and measures to protect them from crime and antisocial behaviour. The successful support provider and all its staff will be fully trained in all safeguarding matters and complement with all safeguarding policies and procedures. Our homelessness outreach team will also work closely with the support provider to address any safeguarding concerns. Our experience of running similar schemes is that antisocial behaviour is unlikely. If, however, you have evidence that antisocial behaviour is being displayed from a resident at 17 Umbersley Road, then there will be a specific officer that residents can report their concerns to, as well as the usual channels like the police. Council officers and the support provider will liaise with the police to manage any concerns that may arise. Although I stress again, our experience from the other scheme in this district is that incidents are unlikely to occur. So regarding the questions around insurance and damage to property, there is absolutely no reason why this scheme should result in any damage to residents' properties. Again, there is no evidence from our scheme in Evesham to suggest there will be an issue. On the contrary, the residents of that scheme have proven themselves to be good neighbours and even checking on elderly members of their community. In the unlikely event, though, something should happen and is shown to be caused by a resident of 17 Ombersley Road, there will be a specific council officer residents can report their concerns to. Staff on site they can raise their issues with, and they also can contact the police should they wish, and it will be dealt with in the appropriate way. Damage would have to be covered by residents' own individual insurance policies. However, again, there is absolutely no evidence that this will be an issue. In terms of parking, we don't anticipate residents to have their own cars. The location is so close to transport and employment links, as well as shops and services, meaning the need for car is reduced. The sustainability of the location is one of the reasons it has been chosen. Support workers and council officers will use the 2 spaces at the rear of the property, but should not usually require any more than these 2 spaces. When the support provider is procured, we will ensure the service level agreement with the provider sets out the parking arrangements and discuss the concerns with local residents. Residents will have the opportunity to publicly respond to the planning application for this change of use of the property when submitted, and parking vision will be considered as part of this. Some of you have asked if we have looked at alternatives or could we build our own scheme elsewhere. We have looked at a wide range of alternatives, including repurposing hotels, pubs and office buildings, as well as other properties on the open market. We have considered buying land to build our own scheme, but it's extremely challenging to ensure development schemes are viable with current land prices, build costs. It's a complex process which will take several years and will certainly be unachievable in the time Wychavon has left before we're swept away by local government reorganisation. Now, coming to questioning around financing, the scheme in Evesham is fully leased by the provider who will cover all the day-to-day running costs and pay rent to us. This covers most of the costs and is supported by funding from the government's homelessness prevention grant, meaning the burden on the taxpayer is low. We cover external and structural repairs to ensure compliance with regulatory safety standards. As we are refurbishing the building to a high standard, we do not have to do any major repairs or maintenance to this property, so the costs are low. It's our intention to refurbish 17 Ombersley to an equivalent high standard. Our total investment for this property is approximately 1.5 billion. This includes the purchase price, which is at the market value and has been assessed by our experienced property team as being a fair and accurate valuation. All relevant taxes, the cost of repairs and alteration, as well as any fees associated with manage the project. You ask, is this value for money? As I've stated previously, it must be remembered that doing nothing is not a cost-free option. As we have seen, homelessness approaches by young people soar by 323% across Wychavon since 2018. These young people are legally and morally entitled to support and need to be accommodated somewhere. Simply putting them in a B&B or a hotel accommodation is expensive and unsuitable. They also won't have the access to the support that they will in this proposed scheme, which will mean they will likely end up in crisis. Then this becomes a more complex and expensive to deal with and has wider societal impacts. Based on this scheme helping 10 people a year, if we were put 10 people in a B&B accommodation for 12 months on an average of £80 a night, the cost to us would be approximately 292,000. If a homelessness person ends up in crisis, has to rough sleep, becomes addicted to drugs and ends up involved in antisocial behaviour and low-level criminality, then the cost of society, the NHS, the police, the courts dealing with that, as well as the loss of productivity to our economy, we estimate, based on an analysis by several independent sources, to be about 27 to 28,000 a year per person, which in this scenario is about 272,000. The cost of combined to give indicative total of 562,000 to deal with accommodating 10 young people in alternative, unsuitable ways. This would mean the scheme would pay back its initial investment in less than 3 years. For transparency, I reiterate these figures are from internal analysis and various sources have not been independently reviewed, verified or scrutinised. In order to answer your question fully as possible, I present them as a helpful indicator of the sort of costs, both direct and those harder to quantify. The scheme would deliver rather than specific cost benefits analysis. But the real value of the scheme will bring in is in the lives it will change. The young woman who arrived at our scheme without hope and on the verge of suicide has now gone on to deal with her issues, secured her own accommodation, and now is looking forward with hope. The young woman who received a phone call on her way home from work informing her that her foster parents had kicked her out and she was now an instant homeless. Our other scheme has picked her up, offered her support with an undiagnosed mental health issue, and is now putting her on a pathway to living independently. Or the young mother who, with the support offered by our scheme and St Basil's, was able to prove she was capable of looking after her child, and again has gone to live independently while building a life for her family. This has saved the taxpayer thousands of pounds in avoiding the need to place the child in the care system, and infinitely better for the parent and the child. This is real value of the scheme, and this is why it's absolutely essential we continue to deliver on our promise, backed by this council, to build on the success of the scheme in Evesham to support our northern residents. And finally, you ask, have we taken your views of local residents into account? We attended and we listened to various concerns of residents at local meetings. We've responded to numerous questions on this issue, both personally and public forums like this. And I reiterate, I myself have offered to meet with residents on an individual and a group basis, and that offer still stands. There will be an opportunity to comment formally through the planning application for the change of use on this property when it's submitted. I want to reassure you, we do understand the strength of the lead on this issue, as demonstrated by that indicative vote taken at the residents' meeting referred to in one of the questions. And I can categorically reject the claims that St Basil's are no longer interested in running the proposed scheme because of local opposition. Our current information is they absolutely intend to bid for the contract, and we express strong interest from other experienced providers in the sector. We do appreciate and emphasise with previous experiences and issues you have raised with us. We accept what has been described to us as is appalling and unacceptable, and will continue to talk to local police and community safety colleagues about the present day concerns being expressed about criminal activity in the area to establish robust data and intelligence-based a response on. But many of the issues raised are based on misinformation and fear by experiences related to an entirely different scheme, past and present. I state again, this scheme is nothing like you have experienced before. We have an opportunity to transform the lives of some of the district's most vulnerable young people, and we cannot afford to waste it. That is why we will be proceeding with this scheme in the proposed location, as it's our only realistic opportunity to seize this. I end with a plea to those of you in the chamber and other residents of Omlesey Road with concerns. Please put your trust in us. We would not do anything that would generally we thought would put you in harm's way or worsen your quality of life. We will ensure this scheme is a good neighbour to you all. Come with us on this journey, and let's change the lives of the young people together.
Thank you. I think that was excellently put. And I think, rounding up, these are residents that would need to be housed in Droitwich, in the centre of Droitwich, in the schemes and in the sort of properties you've already complained about that lack this kind of support. So you'll have full written responses that you'll be able to respond to separately, but as part of the public participation, you get 2 questions in total. I understand that, but you get 2 questions in total as part of the public participation that you have all used tonight, and there will be more opportunities in future to continue, as this council has expressed. We intend to make sure we stay in full consultation with you.
I think we're being misrepresented by him.
I think that brings that portion to an end. So now we will move on to item 7, being petitions from members of the public, of which we have none. Item 8, notices of motion from members of the council, of which we have none. Bringing us on to item 9, reports to council meeting. So we start with the Droitwich Leisure Centre extension and refurbishment.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So, as a trustee of Wychavon Leisure, I can't vote on this motion tonight, but as the relevant portfolio holder, I'm hoping that I can fill you in as to what this is all about. So, as you may remember at the budget, we committed a large sum of money to leisure improvements within the north of the district and within Droitwich in particular, or pretty much predominantly within Droitwich. And obviously that came on the back of the fact that originally we looked into the viability of a new leisure centre. That became financially unviable, and speaking to Wychavon Leisure and speaking to the team at Droitwich Leisure Centre, they didn't feel that that was the best use of public money either, and they didn't feel that necessarily that was where the need was. So we have looked at other ways to reinvest that money accordingly over the course of multiple projects, one of those being at Droitwich Leisure Centre. So for those of you who aren't fully familiar with the works, it essentially includes an extension to the car park, it includes adding a new learner pool, moving the cafe to assist business, and to sort of redo the front of the site. So it's a little bit more accessible and has a greater community feel, so that it's better for those using it, and should hopefully complement the pump track and skate park and other things we've got going around the same area. But another part of the works, and possibly the less glamorous bit, is the legacy works. Now, when this first came to you at the budget, it was we were on a time constraint. We had to get in the budget. Jem and his team worked incredibly hard to get all the details over, and at that stage we were at REBA 2. We are now at a stage where we're at REBA 4, which means we have had independent consultants come in, assess the building for all of the legacy works that need doing. Now, at no point, I think it's fair to say, did we hide the fact that we were expecting some degree of legacy costs. Because of the fact it's an older building, it's very well utilised, and it was fair to assume that there would likely be some additional works that came out of the woodwork once we started digging around. It's fair to say those works are considerable, but they're works that need to be done if we want a fully functional leisure centre, which, if we're going to put in a new learner pool, extend the car park and everything else we're doing, we need this leisure centre to work, we need it to be well heated, we need it to be energy efficient, and that is what this work will do. The pool was in a situation only a couple of years ago where it can't get warm enough in the winter. The heating system just won't get it to the right temperature. So this is work that is imperative to the leisure centre being functional. So it is an additional cost, as you will see within the report, but it is work that needs to be done in order to bring the leisure centre into a usable condition, in order to advance the facility, so that as we move forward, we will have and continue to have some of the best leisure centres within the district and within the country. So, in that, I implore you to support this recommendation. I appreciate it's an increase in costs, but I promise you it is necessary works, and we have done a lot of research to make sure that this money and this spend is justified. Thank you.
Do we have a proposer? Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, thank you, Councillor Birch. I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Adams.
Yeah, very happy, Mr. Chairman, to second this recommendation. And I second it. And I think some people say that that's a lot of money we're spending there. And I want you to just reflect, when I joined this council in the late 90s, one of the things I wanted to do, because I didn't know a lot about how the leisure areas worked in Evesham and Pershore and Droitwich, so I took it upon myself to go round them. I got my exercise chasing cattle and sheep and up and down behind milking cows, so that's where I tried to keep fit. I went round those 3 leisure centres and I knew that they wanted continual investment. So we wind on where we are today and what has happened since the late 90s. New leisure centre came about in Pershore. New leisure centre came about in Evesham. And it's right that we should now be investing major sum of money, I have you, on Droitwich. It's long overdue. I knew back all those years how it was necessary and ongoing to keep our leisure centres up together, and I fully behind the recommendation at 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And we'll take comments from the floor, starting with Councillor Aaron Powell and then after Councillor Neil Franks afterwards.
Thank you, Chairman. I am going to support this investment this evening, but I do want to take the time to put it into context and to remind members of how we got to this point in a bit more detail. In June 2022, the Executive Board approved a feasibility study into the replacement of Droitwich Leisure Centre, which supported the Council's net zero carbon objectives. At that stage, it was stated that a new facility could cost in the region of 20 to 25 million. A further report was received in February 2023, noting that more work was required to cost the options. It wasn't until February 2024 that a further report was considered, noting that the costs were now anticipated to range between £30 million for an all-electric site, not fully net zero, to £42 million for a design following passive house principles. It was only given the scale of these costs that a package of alternative leisure improvements were proposed, including the refurbishment of the leisure centre at a cost of £6.8 million, a skateboard park, an athletics track, a pump track, and the extension and enhancement of the Lido at a cost of £5.1 million. The total cost of this package was stated to be £13 million. At the time, at least one Droitwich councillor bemoaned the fact that this was £10 million less than the cost of the Evesham Leisure Centre and was therefore insufficient, as if this were some sort of game of top trumps and we should pitch the towns in a competition against each other. We now have this report before us today, a total cost of £15 million for the leisure centre refurbishment. In addition to this, costs for the Lido improvement are now expected to be closer to £10 million, with as yet no business case indicating a return on that investment. So the total package costs are now £26,425,000, more than the original estimate for a new leisure centre, and not that far off the anticipated cost of an all-electric option. Remember, this investment this evening is still not achieving a net zero outcome. Alas, I suspect this is just the start, and there will be further demands for spending just weeks away. We are fortunate to have significant reserves as an authority, approximately £70 million. Those reserves have been built up through the careful stewardship of officers and members over many years, and are a testament to the responsible leadership and management of this council to date. But with this investment, we now have a capital programme of over £30 million between now and 2027-28. £15 million of the reserves we hold are dedicated Section 106 monies that we have little discretion over. With other ring-fenced monies for things like homelessness grants, there is only about £17 million of reserves left to be spent. And so I would urge colleagues to be cautious. Let us all remind ourselves that we are here to serve more than we are to govern. As I said at the last council meeting, we represent, we do not dictate. We lead, but only with the trust of those that follow. We are custodians of the hopes, the needs, and the resources of those who have lent us the privilege of doing so for but a short time. These are not our resources to be squandered on vanity projects. They are not to be used to make us look good or to seek to secure the votes of pockets of the populations that we serve. We have a most important trust, and we disrespect that trust at our peril. That trust is more important than whatever badge we wear, whatever party we represent, and if we squander that trust with petty squabbles, partisan politics, or worse, wasteful stewardship of resources that are not ours, we rightly deserve the disdain and rejection that follows. Whatever happens during the course of this evening, I would encourage all colleagues to be mindful of this, to remember the context in which these decisions are taken, as I've outlined, and to reflect on why they are here in this chamber. I hope that this investment in Droitwich will demonstrate our commitment to deliver for the residents there, but also serve to remind us of the need to secure value for money in every investment we make, and to maximise the opportunity to secure both a financial return and improvements in infrastructure and the public realm for the residents of the whole of this district.
Thank you. Councillor Franks.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I just want to say that I know for a fact that residents of Droitwich are completely behind this. I can't speak for every single one of them, but every conversation I've had, they are completely supportive, and so am I. So this is a no-brainer. Please vote for this. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And were there any other hands? Councillor Stokes. Charles.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Powell, I'd actually managed to add up the scheme on this paper came to 21.2 million, and you made reference to some additional funds further to come forward for another part. Perhaps the Lido is going to be more costly than first expected, and you've added it up to 26 million. So where would I find that in the report? It's irrespective of the location. I'm just trying to work it out from a finance perspective. And the other comment that I would make is in 3.5 of the report, obviously it wasn't possible in 2024 to provide accurate forecasting, but missing off the legacy, it would have been helpful if you would been advised that the legacy was coming forward. I misinterpreted that as well. Thank you.
Chairman, if I may reply, as I've been asked a direct question. Clearly, the Lido report hasn't yet reached the council, but will be coming in due course, and I can assure members it will be closer to the £10 million than the original 5.1. As regards the total cost in the report, I would direct the members' attention to paragraph 2.2, which states quite clearly, this will bring the total cost to an anticipated £15 million.
Thank you. Would you care to reply, Councillor Stokes?
No, I'll go find a calculator. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Charles Tucker.
Thank you. If I might also ask Aaron for a bit more clarification. You mentioned, Aaron, that this total cost of this project was likely to reach £26 million, but you also said there was only £17 million available in our capital resources free to meet that cost. Have I misunderstood you?
If I may respond, Chairman, the total cost of this particular project is £15 million. The total cost of the package of projects in Droitwich, including the Lido and the other leisure improvements that were approved, is now anticipated to be around £26 million, 25 to £26 million. I reckon it will be 26.425 to be precise. The £17 million is what's left in reserves when that when those commitments have already been taken. So there is £17 million left once those commitments have been made.
Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Given what we've heard, I was just wondering whether it's feasible for perhaps Jem to just jump in and clarify where this additional expenses came from, because he knows slightly more than I do. If you're happy to do that.
Can you repeat what you're specifically asking, please, Dan? Sorry.
Sorry, Jem. If you can just clarify where the additional expenses came from, so what's led to this increase and what exactly it covers.
Okay, so when the original report went, which was 5.2 million off the top of my head, that was specifically related to the new extension. Now, members are aware that we were looking at building a new leisure centre for a reason, i.e. a lot of the building fabric systems, electrical and mechanicals, was essentially at end of life in the current building. I think it's a bit of an own goal, really, if we build a brand new spanking extension and then attach it to a building where the lift isn't working and tiles are falling off the swimming pool floor. So Members will also be aware, I only picked this up after 2 previous officers had been the lead for the project. In terms of what the legacy, which is specifically about the refurbishment of the existing building, I will point to a summary in the report, page 79. Can't get to the actual page. 2.3.
3.7.2.
3.7.2, sorry. Can't read and I haven't got my glasses, so I'm struggling a bit and my arms aren't long enough anymore. I'm happy to elaborate, probably best to be on a one-to-one if anybody wants to know what specifically is being addressed in the old building. But the summary is there.
Councillor Stokes.
Yeah, I was aware that it's the legacy issues. That's not in contention. What my concern is, the legacy issues weren't mentioned in the report in February 2024, and so therefore there would have been a significant value that should have raised for our attention in February 2024. I'm not against the scheme. I absolutely endorse the scheme. I wanted to go forward, but we mustn't miss off bits in previous reports. That's my concern. Thank you.
Councillor Liz Tucker.
Thank you. I think we've listened to a very carefully worded witch's warning from the Executive Member for Finance. My memory is at the beginning of this project was that because the council decided that it couldn't afford to build the new leisure centre, then they would do a little bit and then they would give them some other goodies to go around the town. We've now got the worst of both worlds, and I think we're being asked to consider whether it is the best use of our money. But nobody's actually said that.
And if I'm not seeing any other hands, I think it's important to think if we weren't going ahead with the plans to build a new leisure centre, these are costs we would have hit anyway. A great way to keep a building alive and to maintain our assets for as long as possible. So, we've had a proposer and a seconder. There are no other hands. We will now go to the vote. Going to take all those in favour. And any against? And any abstentions?
That's clearly carried, Chair.
Thank you. And this takes us next on to item 10, allowances for councillors, including the Independent Remuneration Panel's report and recommendations. So this, I believe we have a proposer, Councillor Day.
Thank you, Chairman. So I think sometimes when we look at these reports, we perhaps mistakenly say that we are awarding ourselves a pay rise. We're not actually. What we are doing specifically is agreeing to an independent report that is awarding ourselves a pay rise. And I would just caution everyone that to step over the line where we go against what is in the independent report means that we're going to be in the no man's land that councillors have been in the past, where they've had to award themselves a pay rise, working it out for themselves. And I think that's a world that we really do not want to be in. So it's much better, I would suggest, that we do use what is an independently prepared report by people who've got the time and the expertise to come up with a recommendation. So what is in the recommendation? Well, the recommendation says that we're going to increase the basic councillor allowance by 5.58%. That will go from £5,518 to £5,826. And I should add that, and we haven't got this in the report, but normally we give a multiple to the chairman of the planning committee, recognising the work that's involved in that being significant, and that multiple is 1.5 times to bring it in line with the chair of ONS. We've been doing that for many years. In terms of trying to put the pay rise into context, some of you may feel 5.58% feels like quite a lot. The report shows, if you have had the chance to read the detail of it, that figure comes from the rise in pricings or the rise in wages, if you like, in this area in Worcestershire. It's called the average, the ASH report. It's the annual survey of hours and earnings. It's based on ONS data. So it's about as clean as you can get, and that shows what the rise is. And the reason why it's logical, I think, to take that number is because essentially what it is doing is it's compensating you for the work that you could have done if you'd have been working either in the public or private sector somewhere in Worcestershire. If you need some other form of comfort from all of this, it is that we are compared in the report with what it describes as our nearest neighbours, not physically our nearest neighbours, but the nearest neighbours in terms of these are the councils that most look like Wychavon, and we are comfortably well within that. The average of that is £6,232, and we're on 5,518. So with that, I'm happy to recommend this report, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a seconder, Councillor Homer.
I'm happy to second the proposal.
Councillor Franks.
Yeah, I just want to say that this is a guide, and it does specifically say that it is for us to decide upon. Now, I understand that there is definitely issues with the way some councillors are paid. So, for example, I've got a lot of respect for those that put themselves on planning. Something I try to avoid for in every way I can, but that's because I worked in the industry and I know what they can get away with. So I do think there needs to be a better pay system put in place for the way some councillors do work here. But I do struggle with the fact that this is above inflation and we have a cost of living crisis and a lot of people are struggling. So I have no issues with people voting for it, but I will have to be voting against it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And unless there are any other hands up around the room, Councillor Middleborough.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, just following on, I would just remind all councillors it's in their freedom to choose whether they take this allowance or not, and they have a choice to do that. And in the past, I do know some councillors have not taken the full amount of the increase. But I think it's important that, one, it's independently put together, and if we want to encourage people to join the council, in case some of us depart, then they have to have certain incentives to do it. And if they are in some sort of employment, this might be the catalyst that enables them to come forward as candidates, which must be a good thing. But don't take it if you don't want it.
Thank you all. And if that's all, we shall go to the vote. Could I take all those in favour? And all those against? And any abstentions? And that looks well carried. Thank you. This takes us next to item 11, being recommendations from the Executive Board. Starting with the revised contract procedure rules, I believe we have Councillor Aaron Powell for this.
Thank you, Chairman. Our procurement strategy has been reviewed in light of the most recent procurement legislation, and these are recommended changes to the rules. The substantive changes are those that are indicated in the report before you at paragraph 70. Namely, that the lower value financial threshold is increased from £3,000 to £5,000. That really just reflects an increase in prices. That the threshold at which 3 quotes are acceptable is increased from £50,000 to £100,000. But it should be noted that only only works below £50,000 will be evaluated on price alone. Anything costing more than £50,000 would still be evaluated on the basis of both price and quality for anything between £50,000 and £100,000. And of course, anything over £100,000 would be subject to a full procurement process under the standard procurement rules. And so I propose to Council the recommendations at paragraph 70, 1, 2 and 3.
Thank you. And I believe we have a seconder, Councillor Morris.
Yes, I'm very happy to second.
Thank you. Any comments from around the room before we go to all those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. And next we go on to financial regulations. Another one for Councillor Aaron Powell.
Thank you, Chairman. Having approved the previous item, this is pretty much a necessity. The financial regulations effectively instantiate our contract procedure rules and the thresholds within the Council's constitution, and therefore, having changed the procedure rules, we now need to update the regulations to reflect that, and so I propose the recommendations at paragraph 71.
Thank you. And we have a seconder, Councillor Chris Day.
Very happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you. And all those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Next we go on to budget of the homeless young people's accommodation. Over to Councillor Rick Deller.
Thank you, Chair. And as you can see from the recommendation paper, this is not to approve the purchase of the property. This is to approve the additional budget. But if you permit me, Chair, I'd like to talk a bit further about the scheme itself. You've heard a lot about it tonight already, and I think in Councillor Boatwright-Green's words, transformation is a management buzzword I think you've used in the past before. But this is truly transformational. Anyone who's been to Merstow Place will see that. And what at the heart of it is love. And you see that in the way the residents interact with each other and the way the staff interact with the young people. For once in their lives, they have somebody who cares about them, somebody who will go the extra mile for them. And that is what this scheme offers. As I said when I went on the chairman's visit to Merstow Place, one of the outreach workers from Wychavon was there, and you could see the bond he had with the guests, with the residents, by the way he interacted with them, and the stories I've heard of this officer who's gone above and beyond to spend his own personal time to support the residents there. They will get life skills they wouldn't normally have. They will get the opportunity to really assess who they are. I spoke to one resident there who was so delighted. You could see it in her face. She was so delighted that she had secured a property of her own and she was going to go off to very shortly. This scheme is affecting so many people. It is changing so many lives. You heard it earlier, 383% increase in young homelessness approaches. That is a figure, but that is people. That is young people who are just unfortunate to be born into a circumstance. They need stability. Well, I spoke to one of the workers there, and they said one of the young people who has had multiple social worker after multiple social worker. The only stability she's ever had in her life is the St Basil staff who work there. And she trusts them. And you can see the fact that she is comfortable where she is. She's got posters on the wall, all her stuff's in the drawers. She's for once in her life not living out a suitcase. The support this offers cannot be overstated. The amount of people who've gone through this, you heard it earlier, the amount of people who've gone through this is just incredible. The fact that young people are getting their lives back on track. And yes, you look at the number, is that number high? Well, yes, it is. But should a young person live in an exemplar property? I would say yes. I would say the fact that you want these young people to attend this home, to live there, and it be something that feels like home. The breakout areas where they can interact with each other, get to know each other, build bonds with the workers there. Have somewhere they call home. This is what this does. And I am so proud that we as a council are doing this. We are changing lives, and that is what we are here for. We are here for our residents. This serves our residents. This serves the young people who have not had a chance in life. This gives them that chance. And Chairman, I am so proud to propose this.
Excellent. And I believe we have a seconder, Councillor Day.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I think it's hard to follow Rick's impassioned plea, but I would endorse it fully. I think we are probably, most of us, all lucky. You know, we all had decent parents in the main, and we can perhaps look back on a happy childhood. And if we didn't, we've done something to overcome it. And I think what we've tried to do in Wychavon for a long time now is to have a programme that focuses on social mobility and allows people who have not been as fortunate as ourselves to move forward and do a bit better. And it is not, as Rick said, it's not about the building. It is about the people inside it and the love and the care that they show to the people that they're looking after each day. So it is an incredibly important programme. I fully understand the feelings of the residents. I do not doubt that for them this is a difficult thing to contemplate because it's change. You don't know what it involves. They don't know anything about Merstow Place. They don't know anything about what we've done in the past. It's all new, and it comes through planning quite quickly, of course. But what I would say is I personally would not be putting forward this idea at all as a member of the exec board if I didn't feel very, very confident that what we're doing will not be harmful to the residents. Far from it. I think it will be beneficial. Because what we're doing here is we're actually going to be making the streets that little bit safer, in fact, and we are reducing our costs going forward. If you want to think about what is in it for us as citizens, it is that we will get a better outcome for society. Rick mentioned that, and he gave a long list earlier on of the things that will be saved. I think the only difference that I'd have with him on that is that the cost and the cost benefit is not in thousands, it's literally in millions. One suicide, the cost of that to the state is considered as 1.8 million. Calling out a policeman late at night, getting into trouble, missing school, not having a job, not paying taxes, being on benefits for the rest of your life. That's the future, I hope, that we are trying to avoid by having these sorts of facilities. So I think it is a transformational thing. I think that is a worthy word to use for it. And I hope that as we go forward, we can reassure and work hard with the residents of Ombersley Road that they will see and understand that the risks are, to them, in fact, diminished, I would argue, by having a facility like that there. So very happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. And we go to the floor, starting with Dan Boatwright Green, then Councillor Wilkins, then Councillor Franks, then Councillor Arnold.
Well, first thing I'll just say, you've used the word transformational correctly, so it's not management lingo bingo if you use it correctly. I've got this actually the right term. One of the speakers before was kind of talking about various issues, and I found myself getting a little bit choked up and a little bit frustrated. And it's very difficult when you've been 16 and homeless to listen to people talking about you being 16 and homeless. I was lucky in many ways. It was a set of circumstances that put me in that situation, and thankfully I still have much of my family, so it's not the end of the world. But you do hear people who've been homeless as teenagers saying those words, like, I was lucky because. You weren't lucky, you were bloody homeless, and it's awful. And having these centres in these places where people actually can then get the support they need, this is actually what gets people into the mindset of what home is. Because one of the reasons why people's lives don't come together is because that concept of home isn't there. And it's something that I've experienced my entire life, that idea of what actually home means. It's a very alien concept if you don't have it when you're younger. And it's something that those who've been brought up around the military, those who have kind of moved around in the care system don't necessarily get. And it's these centres that actually help start to instil that. And it does then become a life experience trying to get that into the mindset. I have been lucky because people have helped me work into this concept of what it means, why you don't destroy something when it doesn't quite go right, because when I was younger I would have done. And actually making sure that it's something that you want to protect and you want to actually then pass on to others. So I fully endorse this 100%. I think it's a fantastic idea. Merstow is amazing as well. I think we do need to think about why it is that we are so desperate to champion this as well, because I do feel like 16 to 19-year-olds get an absolutely horrendous deal, and I'm saying that as a former sixth form teacher as well. But I also just want to say, we need to do more on how we interact with 16 to 19-year-olds in particular, and how we present the council to people, because I'm very aware that I'm probably a very, very small minority of people who will be sitting here with this lived experience, talking about this and having a vote on this. And that feels weird, because a lot of people are talking about how, you know, what they had, and I've got to be honest, I don't really understand it, if I'm absolutely honest, it wasn't there. But I just feel a little bit like the alien trying to explain to everyone else what this is, while at the same time you're telling me how wonderful it is. And it's really difficult to say, actually, that is something we need to build on. So I hope it is something we can kind of factor in later down the line.
Thank you. We next go to Councillor Gregory Wilkins.
Thank you, Chair. I'd originally planned to say this directly to the residents, but I will still say it because I feel so strongly about it. If not here, where? If not now, when? If we are not willing to accept and support our vulnerable youth here, how can we expect anybody else to do so? Our young people need this support now, and we must provide it to them. Being a vulnerable young person does not make you a criminal. It does not make you a drug addict. It does not make you inherently antisocial or a danger to local people. And I, like Councillor Della, reject any insinuation to that effect. It very easily could have been me in need of this sort of service. The location is right and the time is right, and I ask all members to support this project at 17 Ombersley Road now. Thank you.
Councillor Franks.
Well, I want to start by saying thank you to Councillor Eric Della. I think he's obviously put a lot of heart and work into this, and I think this is a great thing for the young adults that we're going to benefit from this. And yeah, so that's what I want to really press. I think with regards to the opposition that we heard at the beginning, I mean, I was hoping to hear the question, you know, how can we be part of that community integration with this new home? I thought that would have been a lovely question to have heard. But I think obviously going forward as local councillors for the area, for the sort of Droitwich area, that I would like to be part of that sort of community integration and see how we can sort of tie together with the young people and help them in their journey, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. I'd also like to start with saying that I too have experienced homelessness in my late teens and early 20s. So I do understand what it's like to be without a home. However, I worked really hard to get myself away from that situation and away from people in that similar situation as well. So would I, now that I've managed to work multiple jobs, save enough money for a home and have a mortgage, want that next to me? No, I probably wouldn't want to live next to one of those properties. So I can, in some respect, understand why the residents are frustrated, because you work hard to move away from a certain type of person and they are worried that this property will attract that type of person, and there are no guarantees for them, for these residents, to say that they won't get people who have illnesses or drug addiction issues. There'll be lots of different types of people within that property. And so I can understand the frustration of the residents when they say they don't want to have that on their doorstep. They've worked hard to move away from people like that. But on the other hand, I also understand we want these people to become taxpayers, to then be able to afford properties, to work and contribute towards their community. So there is that. I can see both sides. My concern, personally, is where these figures come from. Am I missing a breakdown here? This 537,000 of extra money. What is that for? That you can buy a really large home for that amount of money. What will you be spending that money on, please?
If you'd like to respond, Councillor Della.
I'll pull the figure up for you. Hold on.
Whilst you're doing that, are you happy for Councillor Nicola Morris to speak? Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether... Yes, you can hear me. In light of the residents' concern and all of the positive things that we've heard at, is it Merstow Green, which I'm not really that familiar with the details, I'm wondering whether the young people who have been through that property are the best advocates for kind of trying to persuade the people who live in Ombersley Road of what the actual reality is of this project, which I fully endorse, and I agree with all the comments that have been made. I think there's an education that needs to be had in terms of actually showing residents what can be achieved, and if you have young people moving into 17 Ombersley Road and they feel rejected by their local community, that is not a good start. And again, I would echo Councillor Franks' comments, which I think he's suggesting, that we as councillors should be the bridge between that. And I'm hoping that when it comes to planning, we will have some positive examples of young people who've been through the property in Evesham, so that we can endorse this when it comes to planning. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Della.
So the breakdown we have is the purchase price is 670, stamp duty is 57,000, repairs and alterations is 700,000, and then consultancy fees, project management planning, supervision, architectural drawings, design, management, quantity surveying, contingency furniture and equipment is 110,000, which totals the 1.537. So the additional funding has been identified within existing budgets. So including 418 from 106 commuted sums allocated to Droitwich and 119 from earmarked reserves. Now, I hasten to stress that the 106, unless I'm wrong, Jen, you can correct me if I am, that this was earmarked for homelessness prevention in Droitwich. So we are using money to prevent homelessness in Droitwich, for a scheme to prevent homelessness in Droitwich. So yes, it is a lot of money, but then we are a public body. So if you and I went into business together and we decided to buy a HMO, then we probably wouldn't have to go to the exact standard that we are doing now. But because we are a public body, we do have to go above and beyond. There are a lot of features in this house that need some attention. But like I said earlier, it's not really about the money. It's really about the opportunity to give young people that opportunity. Now, I appreciate both you and Councillor Boatwright Green's honesty in sharing your experiences, and I commend you for doing that. I think that's amazing, and I totally understand where you're coming from. But like said earlier, I think the prevention, the upstream work is where this is key. And I think, yes, it looks a lot of money. Yes, we've looked, but like I've said before, we've looked at a lot of other properties. They're just not thereabouts. The location is key. The location to employment, the location to shops is vital, and that's what this comes from. So I can share that with you, but that's the breakdown.
Thank you. And I don't believe I've seen any of the hands. I did see Councillor Arnold's hand go up first, and then Councillor.
It's just a reply, really. Thank you so much for the breakdown. My concern is that figure is huge. And I realise that we may be held to a different standard. But you said it wasn't about money, but it absolutely is about money for our residents. We have to be spending responsibly, like we've discussed previously in this meeting. So I just want us to keep an eye on these figures. You know, if we were to do it ourselves, like you say, it would cost a lot less. And because we're council, that figure then becomes bloated. But these are public funds, so I think it's really important that if we are doing schemes like this, we look at trying to save money and not spending, you know, huge sums like coming back to us and asking for huge sums like this for the type of property.
Councillor Googe.
Yeah, I mean, this is possibly one more for Councillor Homer since it's in his ward, but I must say that the scheme in Evesham, I have not heard one single complaint from any resident about Merstow Place, about residents creating antisocial behaviour or any issues, not any complaint at all. And even on the local keyboard warrior Facebook groups where people will moan about anything and everything, there has not been one single complaint about Merstow Place. On the contrary, I've just had a quick look back through it and seen the response when we put out the press releases on social media in Evesham, and every single response has been positive. This is not a place that has caused issues to local residents, and I don't believe it will cause an issue to local residents in Droitwich either.
Councillor Homer.
Just to further make that point, I joined Councillor Della for a tour around my ward and these, not just for young people, but other similar types of accommodation for people in need. I think there's 3 in my ward alone, and hand on heart, and absolutely the truth, I've never received any complaint from any resident that lives in those vicinity. In fact, I live within about 50 metres of one of them myself, and I didn't actually know it was there until I was given the address to say it was there. And I think Merstow Green, everyone talks about it positively. Of course, it matters about the providers that we work with. Of course, we can talk about costs. The reality is it does cost what it costs, but it saves us money in the long run. I fully endorse this. I think it's appropriate that we have some provision like this in the north of the district, and it's important that we support young people as much as possible so that they can become, again, hopefully, actively participating in life as I'm sure they wish to do.
Thank you. And are there any hands that I'd missed in this discussion? Councillor Dell.
Yeah, I think just to wrap up, and I totally take your point, and without going back and forward on that. I guess for me, when I spoke, it's not about the money. What I meant, what I should have emphasised more on, it's more about the young people, and that's really what. When I said it's not the how much value do we put on saving a young person from living on the streets? How much value do we put on a young person getting back into work? How much value do we put on a young person finding home? And I think that's all of that wrapped up. I think this is a drop in the ocean. Yes, as a public body, we need to scrutinise the figures, and we need to be strong on this. But I just cannot tell you the value and how amazing the Merstow project is. And I would urge you to go and see it. And when this facility is open, I'd urge you to come to it. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And if there are no other hands around the room, we'll go to the vote. Could I have all those in favour? I think that's clearly unanimous. Wonderful. Thank you very much. This takes us next on to recommendations from the Planning Committee, starting with Conservation Area Review with Councillor Middleborough.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm really pleased that this has come before the Council today. This is a Conservation Area Review looking at the environment, heritage and ecology within the context of Staunton, and that's particularly important for Staunton with the developing parkway site, which is going to envelop the traditional village of Staunton, and this will help preserve Staunton as a fantastic place to live, keeping that environment, heritage and ecology together. I think it's also good because it's supported and the local people have been enthusiastic in moving it forward. I do hope that we can work on reviewing as many possible conservation area reviews whilst Wychavon exists, and I think to get them up to date would be a really good thing to do. So I'm pleased to move the recommendation.
Thank you, and I believe we have a seconder in Councillor Wright.
Yes, I'm absolutely keen to extend conservation areas, so I'm very happy to second this. Thank you.
Wonderful. And unless there are comments from the floor, could we have all those in favour?
Yeah, that's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we go on to recommendations from the Licensing Committee, and we have primate keeper licence. We go to Councillor Good.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be reasonably brief with this, I hope so. I hope you've all read the report. Essentially, the government has introduced new legislation, namely the Animal Welfare Primate Licences England Regulations 2024, which require people who want to keep primates, that is what we call monkeys or chimps or gibbons, funky or otherwise. And don't worry, every possible monkey-related joke has already been raised at the licensing committee, so unless anybody comes up with a better one tonight. People will need a license to keep them in their homes because they are highly intelligent creatures. They need a lot. You're probably thinking of archbishops, aren't you, Councillor Knight? I was going to make that joke myself, but decided not to. But anyway, the rule is that people will need a license to keep a monkey or any other primate in their homes. They will need to have their premises inspected to prove they can keep it in suitable accommodation. We, as the responsible licensing authority, will need to regulate that. We will need to collect licensing fees from people, and we will need to inspect their premises before issuing a license. We don't have any choice in that. That is being imposed on us by the regulations. What we're asking you to agree to tonight is to agree our fees for that. As with all of our licensing fees, they are set broadly on a cost recovery basis. They have been estimated at what we expect the costs of inspecting premises to be. WRS will be recruiting as necessary if we find we have a lot of monkeys in the district, although I suspect we probably do not. Apparently it's estimated there's around 5,000 in total across England and Wales. So that means we've got some here, but not a huge number. The fees are in the schedule, and we're asking you to approve those fees so that we can start charging for the licences.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilkins.
Yep, as a member of licensing, I'm happy to second this, and I just want to say I hope so desperately it becomes a part of our procedure to meet these primates before we license them.
Interestingly, I have met primates in Wychavon before. Marmosets, if anyone's met them, can sit in a hand and could easily fill a room with a few hundred. So unless there are any comments from the floor, we go to all those in favour. And that's unanimous, thank you. We go next to reports of chairman, starting with 14, Executive Board.
Thank you, Chairman. The Executive Board has met just once since the last meeting of the Council. At that meeting, which took place on the 26th of March 2025, we approved the action plan following the Corporate Peer Challenge, our new procurement strategy, the proposed approach to the use of herbicides in the Council's parks and open spaces, proposals and procedures for the use of UK SPF and potentially the Rural England Prosperity Fund, the periodic writing off of debts, the purchase of a property in Droitwich to accommodate homeless young people that we've just heard about, and the proposals for food waste and the waste services contract. In addition, we received and considered an update on our Intelligently Green plan, and we supported recommendations from the Communities and Funding Advisory Panel regarding a Section 106 allocation for exercise equipment in Offanem. Members will have already seen the recommendations from the Executive Board to this Council in respect of contract procedure rules, financial regulations, and the funding for the purchase of homeless young people's accommodation, which we have all just now approved. As most of you, I think, will be aware, the Conservative group recently selected Councillor Richard Morris as their leader, and for that reason, I'm standing down as the leader of the Council. It's been a pleasure and a real privilege to lead Wychavon, proudly Conservative controlled for 50 years, and a council which is, on any measure, one of the very best local authorities in the UK. I wanted to thank everyone, starting with Aaron for being a great deputy, my executive board, our councillors, both Conservatives and other parties. We've had some thoughtful and challenging discussions and questions, but we've done so politely, kindly, and in the spirit of best practice, and I really hope that continues. Our wonderful officers deserve every thanks, particularly Vic and the senior management team for always providing constructive, practical challenge, followed by strong delivery. I want to thank too our parish, town and county councillors and their officers, our local business and charity partners, and of course the many active residents for helping build the community and place that we call Wychavon. There are challenges ahead, but we will meet them and we will overcome them. And I look forward to playing my full part on that continuing and successful Wychavon district journey. Thank you.
Excellently put. Thank you. Next we go on to 15, overview and scrutiny. Apologies, I didn't see the hand there.
Did you say it was Conservative control for 50 years? There was, have you forgotten the Lib Dem Labour coalition?
I stand corrected, Councillor Rowley. I rounded up, as all accountants are inclined to do occasionally, but yes, you're quite right, of course.
Thank you. So next we go to item 15, overview and scrutiny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the last council meeting, the ONS committee have met once on the 9th of April. At this meeting, the agenda focused predominantly on rooftop housing. I'm grateful to the committee for the extensive preparation they made ahead of this meeting to ensure that we had a robust conversation about rooftops' performance, especially considering they are the largest social housing provider in Wychavon. I'm equally grateful to Mark McGeegan, Rooftops Executive Director for Operations, who provided a detailed presentation and overview of Rooftops' performance, spending, development schemes and customer satisfaction with genuine candour. The committee's key concerns included repair delays, the main cause of tenant dissatisfaction. Rooftop told the committee they target 1,700 repairs weekly and aim to achieve 95% emergency repair completion within 24 hours. Rooftop acknowledged the need to improve face-to-face customer access and shared its vision by its programme of vision for by 2028, focusing on clean, safe neighbourhoods and future-fit homes. The regulator for social housing graded Rooftop as C2, which is, by all measures, is a good achievement. However, they identified 4 areas for improvement, which were repairs, complaint management, customer influence, and equality and diversity, all of which work has already begun on to make improvements. And I was pleased to hear of Rooftop's ambitions to go further and that they have implemented a plan that they hope will mean that on the next grading, they will be C1, which is the highest consumer standard. To this end, Rooftop was invited to a future meeting in the ensuing year to update us on their progress. I'd like to thank Councillor Rick Della for attending. Sorry. That's, sorry, Rick. Never going to live that one down. I'd like to thank Councillor Della, for attending this session and engaging with the committee, which included following up in writing after the meeting to assure us that he would closely monitor Rooftop's performance, and thanking the committee for their diligent scrutiny of Rooftop. The ONS committee will now consider its new work plan for 25-26 and a workshop to be organised shortly, and I encourage all members with suggestions for our work plan to email me or Spencer, and I'd be pleased to put those suggestions forward to the committee for consideration. Our next meeting is the 16th of July and all members will be welcome to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. And unless there are any questions from the floor, we go on to item 16, Planning Committee.
Thank you, Chair. I think the Planning Committee have probably been overworked in the last 3 months because we've had 3 meetings, quite extensive ones. We've considered 20 applications, ranging from solar farms to drive-throughs, but mainly through developments. And in fact, we've considered applications for 850 plus houses, new houses. which is considerable. With the 9,000 houses yet to be built, it's amazing that we still have a very small 5-year housing supply. And this has produced tensions and difficulties, and obviously colours decision-making, in that any refusals usually end up at appeal and upheld by the inspectors. Hopefully, and definitely, this will improve when the SWDPR is finally passed and neighbourhood plans are adopted on a more general basis. I would encourage everybody to have a neighbourhood plan, because it has made a difference in one application which was upheld because of it. In my opinion, it is important that the local planning authority, that is Wychavon, and the planning committee rejects applications that are plainly wrong and unacceptable, irrespective of the cost. This, obviously, that the amount of works resulted in a considerable amount of time for everybody, resulting in the last committee finishing at about 20 to 10, probably due to the chairman taking too long, or perhaps some of the committee getting carried away. I'm not sure what about that. And we'll soon be putting in for a meal allowance in the evening, I think. However, the planning committee is resilient, and I do thank them and their considerable stamina and input into the debates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And unless there are any questions from the floor, we'll go next on to item 17, Licensing Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. We've already discussed the key issue from our most recent licensing committee, which was actually before the last council meeting, but it was only a few hours before, so there obviously wasn't time to discuss it then. The other main issue we discussed at the most recent licensing committee was mandatory driver safeguarding training for taxi and minicab drivers, to make sure that they know what they're looking for to be able to keep their eyes and ears out for any monkey business going on in the area. We received a report on that and approved some changes to our taxi driver policies regarding that. One thing I know people will have been expecting me to mention but isn't going to be mentioned is a busking policy. That was in the process of being drafted by our principal licensing officer, but he left WRS to go and work elsewhere and left only a partially drafted report. His replacement wasn't able to pick that up in time to come to that meeting, so it's being punted back a little bit, but it is still something to be considered.
Thank you. Unless there's anything from the floor, we'll go to item 18, Member Conduct Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. The committee hasn't met since the last council meeting. The committee is next due to meet on coming Monday, the 19th of May. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go next on to item 19, Audit Committee.
Thank you very much. Yes, the committee met on the 28th of March. We discussed the Regulatory Investigative Powers Act, still unused in this district. We reviewed the Corporate Risk Register, approved the new accounting policies which have just been in front of you today, and also considered and approved the annual government statement. And we also quizzed the internal auditor on the internal audit plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And if there's nothing from the floor on that one, we'll go next to the final item, item 20, being questions from members of the council. And I believe we have our first question from Councillor Reeves.
Hello there, thank you. Back in November, it was announced that the intention of Wychavon Council is to bring the Riverside Shopping Centre, Evesham, into public ownership. As time progresses and the formation of Unitary Council accelerates with intention and budgets anew, is there please an update on progress with this endeavour? Thank you.
And I believe we have a response from Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Reeves. This is really important to Evesham and Wychavon as a whole. The acquisition of Riverside remains our #1 regeneration priority, and I'm delighted to be able to report that a major funder has indicated they are prepared to provide financial backing to support this ambition. A formal decision is expected this summer, and if the deal is given the green light, then this chamber will be asked to approve the purchase. The deal would also see Wychavon take the ownership of properties in Market Square and any other units the owner has an interest in. Detailed discussions about how to regenerate the site won't begin until a sale is completed, but the centre will likely be demolished and replaced with a mixed-use development, including housing and leisure uses. I must stress that that does not include the parish hall. We need to treasure the parish hall, and that will be separate from that. Regenerating this site will further demonstrate our commitment to the delivery of our town prospectuses and will make the best use of Evesham's existing strengths, such as the parks, the river, and the majestic historic buildings.
Thank you. You have a supplementary question if you'd like one.
No, thank you very much for the update. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm told we don't take further questions from the floor on that one. If you'd like, I'm happy to take that if you'd like.
Yeah. Chairman, could we have clarity on the phrase parish hall? Are you, Richard, referring to the town hall or the public hall?
Sorry, it is the town hall, yes.
I'm told no, it's the public hall.
It is a hall. All right. And we know it's a really good hall. It just needs upkeeping.
One of them, but I'm told it's the public hall, to be clear. Thank you. Next, we go on to a question from Councillor Rob Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the recent senseless destruction of the beloved sycamore gap tree and the tremendous outpour of feeling that followed, would this council invite all town and parish councils to submit applications for a TPO, tree preservation order, that is, on any tree that is similarly loved and appreciated?
And I believe we have a response from Councillor Paul Middleborough.
Thank you, Councillor Adams, for, I think, what is a very important question and a very sentimental question as well, but one about our heritage. The Council understands and shares the public's feeling about the destruction of the beloved sycamore gap tree and more recently the felling of a valued oak in Enfield. Legislation allows us to protect trees by making tree preservation orders, which we do regularly. However, the legislation is currently only allows us to do this where there is evidence of a threat or evidence that the tree or trees aren't under proper management. This is a weakness in the current legislation. The sycamore gap tree likely could not have been protected by a TPO because there was no advance warning and no one expected or anticipated such senseless and pointless destruction. The need to strengthen legal protection of our trees has been widely called for and was recently identified as a key finding in an excellent report published in October last year by the Tree Council and Forest Research. The Council will be writing to the Planning Minister to support the recommendations within this report. We encourage residents to add their support by writing to their local MPs and asking them to act on the findings. This will give councils across the country more effective tools to protect our cherished trees and invest in them for the future. In the meantime, if residents are concerned that a valued tree is at risk, they should get in touch with information about the tree and the risk. The council will consider making tree preservation orders, if possible, to ensure trees are protected and will investigate and take appropriate action if works are carried out without consent. Thank you, Councillor Adams.
Thank you. And would you care for your right to reply?
No, I think Councillor Middlebury's well covered the area. I ask this in light, really. I mean, I shall never understand any reason why that tree was cut down by the silly Berks that did that. Having said that, we're going to have a lot of change in our landscape through it with Wychavon, with the forthcoming SWDP plan and the review and all the rest of it, and with these large housing complexes that are coming forward, not least the 5,000, 10,000 in my own area, there will be a lot of trees involved in that, and we want to protect the best of the trees right the way through Wychavon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I draw this meeting to a close. Thank you all for attending this final full council meeting of my term. We'll now adjourn till 8:05 whilst I take a